So good afternoon, everyone. And let's take a few moments to settle down, get into a good state of mind for what we are doing. So make yourselves comfortable. Bring your mind, your awareness into the present, the present place where you are right now, on the present moment, putting aside thoughts of the past, the future. And to generate a positive motivation, bring into your mind, into your heart, your natural feelings of kindness, care, compassion for others. We feel these naturally for people in our family, our friends, people we work with, your patients, students. So try to expand those feelings for more and more people, more and more beings. Everyone, all beings are basically the same. We all want to be happy and to not suffer, to not be hungry, cold, homeless, frightened, in danger. Nobody wants any physical suffering or mental suffering. To feel the wish to do as much as you can to benefit others, relieve their suffering, and bring them peace and happiness. And then see if you can make that your motivation for participating in this class, learning what we are learning about the Buddhist path, which is really about how to eliminate suffering and the causes of suffering, and how to ensure all beings have lasting peace, happiness, all the way up to enlightenment. Okay, so at the end of our class last week, we were looking at the state of mind called renunciation, which could also be called the determination to be free from samsara, cyclic existence, this situation of suffering that we are in, and to attain nirvana, liberation, state of genuine peace and happiness. So in the Buddhist path, this is a very important state of mind to develop. And the way we develop it is by learning about, thinking about, meditating on either the Four Noble Truths or the 12 links, or both. Both can be used. So studying that, meditating on it again and again gives rise to this state of mind, wanting to attain the state of liberation. So when somebody does develop that state of mind, then they need to know how to do it. How do we attain liberation? So we're going to start looking at that now. We could have the slides up on the screen. Yeah, so the first slide looks at the 3 higher trainings. So these are the main practices for the attainment of nirvana or liberation. So you've probably heard these before. The 3 higher trainings. Those are the 3 most important. There we go. The 3 main practices we need in order to attain nirvana, liberation. So the term higher training means that you're doing these practices with the motivation to attain liberation, nirvana. So, of these 3 practices, which are ethics, concentration, and wisdom, the most important one is actually wisdom. There we go. There's the 3 higher trainings. So, higher training in ethics, in concentration, and in wisdom. So, the main one is wisdom. That means the wisdom understanding emptiness, the true nature of everything, ourself, all other beings, all phenomena in samsara and nirvana, everything, whatever exists. Its real nature, its true nature is emptiness of inherent existence. Right now, we don't understand emptiness. We are kind of blind to it. Oh, we may have some intellectual understanding if we've heard teachings on it and read about it and thought about it. We might have some understanding of it. But we need to develop wisdom. This is a mental state that directly sees, directly realizes emptiness. So that state of mind is what will eliminate all the causes of suffering in our mind: ignorance, attachment, aversion, and so forth. So all the causes of suffering get cleared away, not all at once, but gradually in stages by this wisdom. And it's not easy to develop wisdom. One reason it's not easy is because our mind is very disturbed, like a monkey mind that is always jumping here and there, not able to stay still. And so we need concentration. We need to develop the ability to keep our mind focused on an object that we choose to focus on. And with that strong concentration, we can achieve wisdom. But concentration is also not easy because our minds tend to be very busy. And it's partly because of our lifestyle. We tend to be running around a lot, doing a lot of different things. And then when we sit down to meditate, we're still thinking about things we've done or planning for the next things we're going to do. So it's difficult to keep our mind concentrated. And one reason for that is ethics. If some of the actions that we do are motivated by afflictions like attachment, aversion, jealousy, and so forth, then these are unwise, unskillful actions, unethical actions, and they disturb our mind because then, we feel regret for the things that we've done. We worry, have anxiety about what's going to happen to us as a result of the things that we've done, and so on. So a lack of good ethics can cause our mind to be more agitated, making it more difficult to have concentration. And so it's said that the first of the higher trainings we need to work on is ethics, higher training in ethics. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that because the second two, higher training and concentration and wisdom, in the Lam Rim, those are explained extensively at the end of the book, at the end of the Lam Rim, in the context of the 6 perfections, because they are 2 of the 6 perfections. So that's where they're explained more extensively. So here in the middle scope, medium scope, there's more explanation on ethics. So now we can go to the next slide, the benefits of ethics. So it's good to know why it's important to practice ethics. And then we'll have more enthusiasm to practice it. So the first bullet point is just an explanation of what ethics is. It's the quality of mind that wishes to protect and abstain from committing non-virtuous actions with our body, speech, and mind. Okay, so protect, we want to protect ourselves, because if we do non-virtuous actions, we are creating the cause to suffer. And if we don't want to suffer, then we have to not do those actions. So we're protecting ourselves when we practice ethics. We are also protecting others, because many of the non-virtuous actions that we do harm others, cause suffering to others, and we want to protect them. So protecting ourselves and others from suffering, then we abstain. We make this conscious effort to abstain from doing non-virtuous actions with our body, speech, and mind. That's the meaning of ethics. And eventually we want to get to the point where we even don't think about, we don't even have thoughts, wishes to do non-virtuous actions. But that takes time. So we start by just working on our body and speech. And so the benefits of ethics include things like happiness in this life and in future lives, because non-virtue is the cause of suffering. So if we don't do non-virtue, we don't create the cause of suffering, and we create virtue, which is the cause of happiness. So there's happiness in this life and also in our future lives from living ethically. And it's also said that the ethics is the foundation of all good qualities. So this is what the Buddha said. You know, if we want to achieve all the realizations of the path, nirvana, enlightenment, calm abiding, wisdom, all of these things, they're all based on ethics, good ethics. If we don't have a good foundation and good ethics, then none of those things are possible. And the basis of all realizations. Yeah, so all the stages of the path, the different realizations that can be achieved, depend on good ethics. And then it's also good to think about the disadvantages of not practicing ethics. If we're just careless and do whatever we feel like doing, even harmful, non-virtuous actions, then what will happen is suffering in this life and future lives. So we have plenty of opportunities to see examples of that in our own lives and the lives of others, how unethical behavior leads to suffering right here and now, but also for future lives. Also, it said that it will become difficult to meet spiritual teachers and teachings if we don't care about ethics and try to live ethically. Then we're creating obstacles for ourselves to be able to meet spiritual teachers and learn from them, learn the spiritual teachings, and attaining realizations. So the realizations of the path will be out of reach for us if we have bad ethics, careless about ethics. So it's good to contemplate these points, and hopefully it will lead us to conclude that ethics is important, something we need to take care of, learn about, and practice it. So how to practice ethics? The next slide gives some guidelines on what we can do. So the starting point is to refrain from the 10 non-virtues as much as possible. So you've learned those before. Abstaining from killing and stealing and so forth. Try to avoid those as much as possible. And if we do sometimes do something, a non-virtuous action, we have purification practice that we can do to purify that karma. And it's good to have this this basic attitude, like we call it in Christianity, the golden rule. And in Judaism, Rabbi Hillel made a similar statement, basically just understanding that others don't want to suffer. And so I'm not going to do to others what I wouldn't want anyone to do to me. And opposite, I will do to others what I want them to do to me. We want people to be kind to us, to respect us, not harm us. And so that's how we feel. And then we apply that to others and behave towards others the way we would like them to behave towards ourselves. So that's a good basic guideline for how to live ethically. And then in Buddhism, there's also this option of taking precepts, pratimoksha, that means individual liberation precepts. So when people become a Buddhist, take refuge. That's the starting point of following the Buddhist path. When they take refuge, they have the opportunity to take any of these precepts or vows, such as the 5 lay precepts. You actually make a promise to not kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, tell lies, and get intoxicated. So if you can't take all 5, if you can't do all of those, you can just take 1 or 2 or 3, however many you want. And then there's also precepts for people who want to really make a strong commitment and become a monastic, a monk or a nun, like me and Venerable Yunden. Yeah, so there's different levels of vows or precepts that we can take. And this is a very powerful way of practicing ethics, because you make this commitment, this promise, and it's with you 24 hours a day. And in the beginning it's hard to keep them perfectly, but as time goes on you just get more used to it, and eventually it's like, oh, I would never kill even an insect, as if I can help it. So it just becomes your default mode to keep these precepts. And then there's also these 4 points that are called gateways to downfalls, meaning these are 4 ways that we can fall down, break our ethics, break our precepts, and so on. So we need to be aware of those and try to avoid them. The first is not knowing, and that means not knowing what is right and wrong. What are your vows? It happens sometimes. People become monks and nuns without even knowing the vows that they have to keep, and then they break them because they don't know what they're supposed to do and not do. So it's very important to study, to make sure you are familiar with what is virtuous, what is non-virtuous, what is to be done, what is to be avoided. And the second is called lack of conscientiousness, or conscientiousness is like being careful, being very careful about what you do rather than reckless. Like a bull in a china shop is the expression. You're just kind of breaking things all over the place. So the antidote to that is mindfulness, being mindful, having awareness of what we are doing with our body, with our speech, our mind. Mindfulness also involves remembering what we have learned, remembering the information we've learned about what is virtuous and what is not virtuous, and not forgetting what we have learned. And other things that are helpful are, Yangsi Rinpoche mentions humility. If we are arrogant, we think we know more than we do, we think we're better than we are, then that can lead to conscientiousness, lack of awareness of what you're doing. So it's important to be humble, always aware that you have more work to do on yourself, you have more learning to do. Try to avoid being arrogant. And consideration of others, being concerned about others, not wanting to harm them. and also apprehension about the suffering that would come from wrong actions. So we need to realize that if we do harmful actions, they're going to lead to bad results. We have to have that awareness, and then that will stop us from doing those actions. And then number 3 is disrespect. So this can include not having respect for our teachers, for our elders, for the Buddha, for his teachings. So if we have this kind of, again, it's kind of arrogant attitude, like I know better than them, I am better than them, I look down on them, then that can lead us to downfalls, to making mistakes. And so it's important to have respect. The opposite of that is respect, respecting the good qualities of our teachers and of our elders and of the Buddha and his teachings and so on, and our spiritual friends. So seeing the good qualities, contemplating the good qualities of these objects that are worthy of our respect, that will help us have more respect. And then number 4 is having many delusions. Well, we do have many delusions, but we shouldn't just leave them to do what they want. We have to tame them. So we need to tame our mind, tame our delusions, anger, attachment, jealousy, arrogance, and so on. So again, that requires mindfulness so that we notice what's going on in our mind. And when we do notice some delusion, applying antidotes, apply antidotes as much as possible so that they don't take over our mind and then lead us to do harmful things. So this is just very brief, but there's a lot of information in Buddhism about ethics. But we'll stop there and move on. So we've come to the end of the medium scope, which is the middle section of the Lamrim, and we are going to start looking at the great scope of the Lamrim. And the great scope is the Bodhisattvas Path. This is for those who want to become Buddha, fully enlightened. And so in the great scope, we have the methods for developing bodhicitta and practicing the 6 perfections, the main practices for the attainment of Buddhahood. And I thought to make this chart, I hope it's not too complicated, but because at the beginning of this section on the great scope, Yangsi Rinpoche talks about some of the differences between the sometimes called the Hinayana, meaning the path that leads to self-liberation, nirvana, and the Mahayana, which is the path leading to full enlightenment, Buddhahood. And he does mention these. I don't know if he mentions all the 5 paths, but he does mention some of the 5 paths in his teaching. So I thought it might be helpful just to look at all the 5 paths of the 2 vehicles, the Hinayana and the Mahayana. So a path, the word path here, a path is actually a mental state. It's a state of mind. It's a realization. So it's not an ordinary state of mind, but it's a mind that comes about through meditating, practicing, and it's a wisdom. Okay, a path is actually a wisdom, a kind of wisdom. And so there are 5 paths that are like 5 stages of one's development, either towards nirvana, liberation, or towards Buddhahood. So just briefly go through these. The first is called the Path of Accumulation. And the starting point of this path, in the case of a Hinayana, someone who wants to attain nirvana, when they have uncontrived renunciation. So that means they've meditated on the 4 Noble Truths, the 12 links, many, many times again and again and again. And they generate this strong feeling of renunciation, of determination to be free. I want to get out of samsara. And when this becomes uncontrived, meaning it's just spontaneous, it's you don't have to do anything to make it arise. It just arises by itself, like the thought of food when our stomach is empty. So it just arises in a natural way. So when a person has that experience of uncontrived renunciation, then that's the starting point of the path of accumulation. They have achieved the path of accumulation. Now, in the case of the Mahayana, it's a little different. Somebody who wants to attain Buddhahood, they do have to develop renunciation, but for them, the starting point of the path of accumulation is uncontrived bodhicitta. So again, they have been working on developing bodhicitta over a long period of time. And in the beginning, you have to make it come up in your mind. It doesn't arise naturally. But at a certain point, it will arise naturally, spontaneously, all by itself. And that's uncontrived bodhicitta. So when a person has reached that point, then that's when they enter the Mahayana path of accumulation. And it's called the path of accumulation because one needs to accumulate merit, positive energy, to go further. Okay, because you're just starting on your path, and so you have to keep going, and you want to reach your goal. And to reach your goal, you have to accumulate a lot of merit, positive energy. So that's the meaning of path of accumulation. And the second path is called the path of preparation. And for both Hinayana and Mahayana, this is achieved. Can we leave questions till later? I would like to continue.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Let me finish this chart, and then we'll stop for some questions. Okay, so the path of preparation starts when, so part of one's practice is to develop wisdom, the wisdom understanding emptiness of true existence. So one needs to study that, meditate on that, and develop. The first realization you have is a conceptual one, an intellectual one, intellectual realization of emptiness. So you need to develop that. And you also need to develop calm abiding, this very powerful, concentrated state of mind. And then you need to bring those two together and have what's called a union of calm abiding and special insight, which is a kind of wisdom, on emptiness, with emptiness as the object. So I think you've probably heard about that before. This is a very powerful state of mind, a very concentrated state of mind, focusing on emptiness. So when you have achieved that, then that's the start of the path of preparation. And here you are preparing to achieve the direct realization of emptiness, which is the path of seeing. So the path of seeing is when you have the direct realization of emptiness. So you're working towards that while you're on the path of preparation. You're making your understanding of emptiness deeper and stronger. And eventually it gets to where you have a direct, non-conceptual realization of emptiness. You're able to see emptiness directly with your mind. Without a mental image. There's no mental image. It's just direct perception of emptiness. And so that takes time to develop while you're on the path of preparation. And when you do have that direct realization of emptiness, then that's the third path of seeing. And that's the point when you become an Arya being. Okay, so from that point on, one is an Arya. One has this direct realization of emptiness. And that's when you first start to abandon the afflictions, the things in the mind that are the cause of suffering, cause of staying in samsara. So they don't all disappear at once. They disappear gradually. So when you achieve the path of seeing, you have this first direct realization of emptiness, you abandon or eliminate acquired afflictions, which means afflictions like ignorance, attachment, aversion, and so forth, that have been acquired through philosophical study, through intellectual philosophical study. So we do have afflictions that are based on that learning rather than the innate ones that we've had in our mind from beginningless time. But anyway, it's very powerful. We're starting to clear away our afflictions, our afflictive mental states. And so that brings a great peace. I mean, just saying, reduce the mental afflictions brings about a great, great sense of peace. And then the fourth path is called the path of meditation. And here, this goes for a long time. One continues to meditate on the direct realization of emptiness that you've had. So you go in and out of meditation. There's times when you're meditating, your mind directly realizing emptiness. And then when you come out of meditation, you continue to accumulate merit. You need to continue accumulating positive energy in break times. And your direct realization of emptiness becomes stronger and stronger, more and more powerful. And so it's able to eliminate the innate afflictions. So these, like ignorance, attachment, aversion, and so forth, that have been in our mind from beginningless time. They're innate, instinctive. So again, they don't all disappear at once, but they go away in layers. First, the very gross ones, and then subtler ones, and finally, the subtlest of all. So here there's a difference between the Hinayana and Mahayana, because in the case of Hinayana, they are abandoning only the afflictions, afflictive emotions, greed, hatred, ignorance, and so forth. But in the case of someone on the Mahayana path, that's a bodhisattva who's working for enlightenment. There's another kind of obscuration, which are sometimes called knowledge obscurations or cognitive obscurations, obscurations to omniscience. So these are obscurations in the mind that prevent the mind from attaining omniscience or Buddhahood, full enlightenment. So those are not abandoned on the Hinayana path, but they are abandoned on the Mahayana path. So a bodhisattva who's following the Mahayana path, while they're on the path of meditation, they first clear away the afflictive obscurations, the innate afflictions, and then they also abandon the knowledge obscurations. So again, this is something that happens gradually in layers. The fifth path is called the path of no more learning, because here you've reached your goal. You don't have to do any more learning. You've got nothing more to learn. So in the case of Hinayana path, this is nirvana, liberation. In the case of the Mahayana path, this is Buddhahood. The person has achieved full enlightenment, Buddhahood. Okay.
Regarding the path of accumulation, I wanted to ask about the connection, the relation between ethics and karma, and in a way, do they converge in the path of accumulation?
How ethics and karma converge in the path of accumulation. I'm not quite sure what you mean. I mean, even before the path of accumulation, one is practicing ethics very, very strongly, refraining from non-virtuous actions, accumulating virtuous actions, keeping precepts, keeping vows. And ethics and karma are very much interconnected, because we do need to understand karma. We need to understand how the actions that we do lead to results. And so your practice of ethics and refraining from non-virtuous karma, creating virtuous karma, this is becoming more and more refined as you go along, the path. But I haven't heard anything specific about the path of accumulation, about something happening at that point that has to do with ethics and karma. Have you heard something about that? I'm just wondering where the question is coming from.
I just thought about what you were saying, that it's a process of purification, and till the result is the kind of the goal or the end of the way of accumulation. Where is it going to, or where is it leading to? The more the purification is progressing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anything specific what you're saying. But like I say, one is, even before the path of accumulation, one is really working on that level of ethics, living ethically, but also cultivating concentration and cultivating wisdom that understands the true nature of things, starting with impermanence and unsatisfactoriness, and then eventually selflessness and emptiness. So one is working on all these different layers at the same time. But ethics is a important foundation, because if we disregard that, we won't be able to achieve these other states of mind like concentration and wisdom, and there's no way we'll be able to achieve any of these paths. So I mean, it's something that runs all through one's practice. So even after achieving these paths, one continues to live ethically and refrain from karma, non-virtuous karma, and create only virtuous karma. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, what you're asking.
Okay, I'll think about it. Thank you. Thank you, Sangye.
Thank you. Yeah, so with regard to the Hinayana, Mahayana, like I said, Yangsi Rinpoche discusses comparisons between the two. And he does say later that this is not to discredit the Hinayana tradition or the Pali tradition. It was taught by the Buddha, and it's a valid path. But he's simply trying to point out that there are differences. And within the Mahayana teachings themselves, the Mahayana path is considered preferable, because one is aiming for Buddhahood, full enlightenment Buddhahood, with which one can be of benefit to all living beings, which isn't possible. I mean, there's limitations. If you attain nirvana or liberation, there's limitations on what you can do to help others. So, and then he does talk about how before we start developing bodhicitta, we do need to train in the medium scope, and we need to develop renunciation. We need to understand samsara, because our goal is to help sentient beings be free of samsara. So we do need to understand samsara, how it works, how everyone is suffering, all the different kinds of suffering, what are the causes of suffering. So we can't skip over that. We can't skip over that section and be able to generate great compassion and bodhicitta and so forth. And he also spoke about how we do need to have the experience of suffering, and we shouldn't be averse to suffering. We should be willing to look at suffering and understand suffering, because that enables us not only to free ourselves from suffering, but also to understand the suffering of others and what we need to do to help them. And he also said it's important to understand the root of suffering, which is ignorance. grasping at a sense of self or I, me, that, you know, is that our sense of self or I doesn't exist as it appears. And so we need to work on that as well and understand that in our experience. Okay, so yeah, I don't have time to go into everything that is covered in the book, but I would like to move on to talk about the benefits of bodhicitta. Yangsi Rinpoche just mentions the benefits that can be found in other sources. So I've taken, in the next slide on the slideshow, I've taken from a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which is called In Praise of Great Compassion. So there are very extensive teachings on how to develop bodhicitta and the 6 perfections and so on. So it's good to look at the benefits of bodhicitta because it does take time and energy to cultivate bodhicitta. It's not something that will arise naturally, spontaneously. Okay, so the next slide has the benefits. Okay, so these are some of the benefits of developing bodhicitta and some of the benefits we can experience here and now in this life, but there's also long-term benefits. So just here in this life, we'll have greater peace and happiness because we're cultivating love and compassion and altruism and working to benefit others. And by doing that, we need to overcome anger and hatred and any sense of wanting to harm others, and also self-centeredness. So anger and self-centeredness are decreased when we develop bodhicitta. And because those are not running rampant in our minds and in our lives, naturally there'll be more peace and happiness. So we get immediate benefit from developing bodhicitta. And then another benefit is good health. So it will affect our health, we'll be healthier, and also good relationships with our family and friends because we are focusing on others and doing as much as we can to benefit others. Third is having more hope, more courage, confidence, and self-esteem. So again, developing more concern for others and sincere wish to help others, and actually doing things to help others. This will increase these qualities. And I can really see that in my own case, my own experience. I used to be incredibly shy. I couldn't, talk in front of a group of people, and even talking one-to-one with people. I was very, very shy about that, very lacking in self-confidence. So I've changed a lot. And I think a lot of it is due to working on cultivating these positive qualities of love and compassion and wanting to help others. And the next one is better able to deal with life's problems and also difficult people. So there's lots of tools in the teachings on bodhicitta that we can use when we do face problems in life. Sickness, misfortune, things happening that we don't want, and also difficult people that we have to encounter. So there's lots of methods that help us deal with these problems so that they're not so much problematic. And next point, he says it will bring more care for the environment and living beings. So understanding that this world that we have, this planet Earth, is our home, and if we damage it, then it will affect the living beings on it. So this will enable us to have more concern for the environment, take care of the environment, live our life in a way that we don't contribute to climate change and catastrophe, but preserve the environment and living beings, taking care of other living beings. The next point is dying with a peaceful mind and no regrets. So if we live our life in this way, then our mind will be peaceful during our life. And then when we come to the end of our life, our mind will be able to be peaceful. We won't have so many regrets. Oh, I did so many bad things. I was so selfish. I hurt so many people. So we won't be hung up with all those kinds of thoughts. Our mind will be peaceful. And that's good. So those are just things we can experience in this very life, generating bodhicitta. But then in terms of the path, the Buddhist path, he says it will enrich our practices of the small scope and the middle scope. So, for example, karma, learning karma, living according to karma, and also meditating on the Four Truths and so on. So all these become much richer with learning about meditating on bodhicitta. And then lastly, everything we do becomes the cause of enlightenment. So making an effort to generate bodhicitta and do things with the motivation of bodhicitta, then all those actions, even ordinary things like eating and sleeping and playing and working, they all become the cause of enlightenment. So we're bringing ourselves closer and closer to enlightenment all the time. So these are just some benefits, but there's many more. And it's good to try it out and see if it works. So there's also some obstacles to bodhicitta that we need to be aware of and overcome. That's in the next slide. So Yangsi Rinpoche mentions a few. Anger, of course, that's a huge obstacle. Anger and vengeance, wanting to retaliate against those who may harm us. So these are probably the biggest, greatest obstacles. So there's lots of methods in the Buddhist teachings on how we can reduce and overcome those states of mind. But he says other delusions as well: attachment, arrogance, jealousy. These are all obstacles to bodhicitta. So we need to work on those, overcome those. The second one he mentions is clinging to the appearances of this life, which means the 8 worldly concerns. So I'll remind you of those in case you've forgotten. But those are being concerned about gain and loss, wanting to accumulate more and being devastated whenever we lose things. Praise and blame, wanting people to praise us and really upset if we get blamed or criticized in any way. Fame, wanting to be known, to be recognized, to be famous, and being unhappy if we don't have that, if we're kind of a nobody. And then pleasure and suffering, being very attached to mainly sensual pleasure. It's talking about, nice experiences with our senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, and so on. Being attached to those and having aversion to the opposite, unpleasant sensations. So if we're completely hung up on those things and spend all our time and energy chasing after what's pleasant and trying to get away from what's unpleasant, then this is an obstacle to bodhicitta. So these are basically about attachment and aversion. So the antidote to these is contemplating impermanence and death, realizing this life is not going to last forever, and chasing after what is pleasant in this life and struggling to avoid what is unpleasant is not a wise way to spend our life, given that it's very short. And it's best to find a lifestyle where we have enough and we're satisfied with what we have, or content with what we have, and we have plenty of time left over to engage in spiritual study and practice and meditation, and of course doing things that are beneficial for others. And the third obstacle is clinging to the temporary pleasures of higher realms. So this is with regard to the medium scope. In the medium scope, we meditate on how wherever we are born in samsara, even in the highest realms, which are so blissful, you're just in a blissful state of meditation your whole life, no suffering, no gross suffering anyway, that this is still just temporary and won't last. And we're not free of samsara. We're still trapped in the cycle of samsara, with ignorance, with karma, with other afflictions. We haven't freed ourselves from those. This is just a temporary respite from more gross kinds of suffering, but it doesn't last. And so we need to overcome that clinging and generate the wish to be free of samsara. But then that brings us to the last obstacle, which is aspiring for individual liberation. So that's when we want to be free of samsara, we want to get out of samsara, but we're only thinking of our own liberation and not helping all other living beings. So that can become another kind of trap, another kind of obstacle. I want to get out of samsara and put all our energy into that, but then neglecting to benefit others. So someone who wishes to attain enlightenment needs to be aware of these obstacles that can arise in their mind and apply antidotes to them. And so we don't have time today to go into the full development of bodhicitta, but I'll just show the next slide, which is this is one method for developing bodhicitta, and you've probably heard it before. We'll go into it in more detail next week, but just to review. So the starting point is equanimity, where we even out our feelings for others and try to have unbiased concern for everybody and not favor some and reject others, but realize everyone is equally deserving of our respect, concern, kindness, and eventually our bodhicitta, that we want to become enlightened to help each and every living being. And then recognizing all beings have been our mother, recalling their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, loving kindness, great compassion. And in the book, Yangsi Rinpoche goes into quite a bit of discussion about compassion, how it's important in the beginning of our path to enlightenment to get us going in that direction, because we want to relieve the suffering of others, and how it's important all along the path. We need to continue having that great compassion in order to keep going on the path. And it's important at the end when we attain Buddhahood, because the whole point of becoming a Buddha is to help others. You don't become a Buddha and then you just sit there and meditate and enjoy enlightenment. But the whole point is to help others. So as a Buddha, as an enlightened being, you're constantly aware of others and doing what you can to benefit them. So compassion is an extremely crucial element of the path to enlightenment. And it's said that the first four of these 7 points are causes that will produce or generate great compassion. And then the extraordinary supreme thought is when great compassion is where you don't just wish others to be free of suffering. That's compassion. Compassion is wishing others to be free of suffering. But great compassion is taking personal responsibility. I want to free them from suffering. I will help them be free of suffering. And then number 6, the extraordinary thought, you go a step further and you actually say, I take on the commitment, the responsibility to free all sentient beings from suffering and help them achieve happiness, the happiness that they wish for. So you're shouldering that responsibility. Then the last one, number 7, is bodhicitta. So that's when you check, how can I carry this out? How can I actualize this commitment? And the way to do that is to become a Buddha, to become fully enlightened. It's only when I reach Buddhahood that I can help all sentient beings be free of suffering and help them have happiness. So that's just roughly the 7 steps, and we'll go through those starting next week in more detail. Okay, so let's stop there and make a dedication of the merit, the positive energy we created by having this class, listening to, learning about, thinking about the teachings of the path to enlightenment with a wish to benefit all beings. So may this positive energy be shared by all people and all beings, bringing them genuine peace and happiness, freeing them from suffering.